Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us live and through video. First, I want to start that voting is our most fundamental right. Voting is something that we should not allow to be undermined by election fraud. Voting is something we should not allow to be undermined by people that take advantage of the system and that people that vote more than once illegally, or they're not citizens, or for whatever reason they're not eligible to vote. This is all significant. So to address this issue, I filed a couple bills that were penalty enhancements and also to get us back into the cross-check. So as I was looking into this issue, I discovered that there are people that we know about in Illinois that are double voting. The State Board of Elections does an audit after every election, and I FOIA that information. Now, the most current information that has been audited was 2016. Now, the State Board of Elections denied that FOIA request, but what they did supply with me is the numbers of people that voted twice and what counties they live in. So I will be sending out a press release this morning with that information. After the audit, there are 65 documented cases of double voting in Illinois. They run throughout the state, and I'll go through those details momentarily. But I'm looking into this issue more so. So this week I filed another FOIA request for the 2014 election results. So that should not be a plausible denial of the FOIA because the statute of limitations is passed on that. There's no ongoing investigation there. Now, I certainly haven't heard about any prosecutions of double voting. Have you gentlemen heard about any prosecution of double voting? No. So what that tells me that the state's attorneys across the state of Illinois are not prosecuting election fraud. These are documented, audited cases of election fraud. This is something that undermines legal voting. If someone is a legal voter of Illinois and someone else comes in and votes twice or votes illegally, that takes away a vote from a legal citizen. That's wrong. That undermines democracy. That undermines the compact of society. That's a big deal. So I'm releasing this information. I'm releasing a press release on this, and I just want to push through a little bit more on these specific details. Bear with me. In the packet is my press release, information from the State Board of Elections, a FOIA denial, and also a comprehensive list of identified voters that have voted more than once or inappropriately. And I'm just going to quickly go through some of the counties here. We have a case in Boone County. We have 39 cases in Cook County. We have 17 cases in DuPage County. We have a case in Effingham County. Bear with me here. We have cases in Henderson County, Jackson County, Kane County, Kendall County, Lake County, Lawrence County, Macon County, McDonough County, McHenry County, McLean County, St. Clair County, Stevenson County, and Will County. The state's attorneys in these counties, I'm putting them on notice. They need to prosecute these cases of election fraud. I will be posting this information on my website. When the statute of limitations passes and my FOIA is not denied any longer, I will post those names on my website. Effectively, I'm going to start my own cross-check for the state of Illinois. These are significant issues, and this needs to be stopped. So looking at some of these counties, some of these are small and some of these large. Per capita, I'm actually seeing a very large spike in Will County. Will County is especially interesting because there's a gentleman in Will County that has trying to compel the state's attorney in Will County to prosecute another well-known version of election fraud. A little bit different than double voting, but someone that has actually walked away from their voter registration, moved out of state, voted here in Illinois, and then conveniently voted back in Washington, D.C. That person is actually a congressperson here in Illinois, and this person in 2016 did a mail-in ballot in Will County, and then without changing their voter registration voted in Washington, D.C. later that fall. This situation, the Will County State's Attorney has ignored it, and I'm basically calling out that situation because there are 7 cases in Will County of double voting. It seems to be a pattern of ignoring election fraud in Will County. Some of the more interesting things that came up with is my solution to solve this. One of them, so I filed a bill, and that is HB 2632, and that is a penalty enhancement for double voting. So it addresses people that both double vote within the state of Illinois, but also people that vote in Illinois and another state. So that's something that is a little bit harder for me to track down right now, especially because the State Board of Election has pulled out of cross-check, so we can't look into that. But that's something that I plan on doing on my own. But this situation where someone might have another residence, vote here in Illinois, and then vote at the other state, or work, or for whatever reason has another voter registration in another state. It's unfair, it's unjust. The other particular one is to get us back into cross-check so that this makes it easier to track down on people who are doing this state by state. Actually, before I entertain questions, I want to introduce a couple of my colleagues here. Actually, I'm just going to have them step up and throw in their comments. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, one of the things that I think is very important is we restore integrity to the ballot box. You know, Illinois has been an ongoing joke ever since I was a young child about 60 years ago. There's always been conversations about voter fraud and voting twice and dead people voting. And I think that when we look at this issue, the way to fix this is real simple. One of the ways that you fix it, this is like restoring integrity to the ballot box 101. One of the ways that you fix it is you require a voter ID. You have to have an ID to get on a plane. You have to have an ID to stay in a hotel. You have to have an ID to buy booze. You have to have an ID to do almost anything in our culture today. So I don't think that this is intrusive to anyone. And the only reason why we get pushback from the folks on the other side of the aisle is they want to leave the door open so they can cheat in elections. And this is not right and it needs to stop. I think another thing that we can do is that you have to be a citizen of the United States of America. You have to be a citizen of Illinois to vote in an election. The third thing is that you need to be only able to vote once. And the fourth thing is that you can't be dead and vote. You know, and these are 4 pretty simple solutions to fix the voter fraud in Illinois. Thank you.
We need to get your name. Can you identify yourself, Representative?
My name is Chris Miller, and I represent the 110th District. It's about 100 miles long and 60 miles wide from Coles County on down to Lawrence County, Cumberland, Clark, Crawford, and part of Edgar County. That's my district. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Darren Bailey from the 109th District, and my district's about 2 hours long and about 90 miles wide, so southeast Illinois, south of Effingham. And I agree with my colleagues. I'm proud to be a sponsor of Representative Skillicorn's bill. I'm glad that he has brought this to our attention because ultimately, what does our freedom reside on? It resides on this very act of being able to vote and therefore give our ideas and offer our opinions. So accountability and integrity is what is lacking, and that must be restored. And you know, it's interesting that there are some of these in my district because life's a little different in Southern Illinois. When I show up to vote in my precincts, everybody knows everybody. We know. You know, we know each other. So, you know, I've taken that for granted for many years, but then to understand now how this could so easily happen, the fact that deceased people are not taken off the rolls, and the very fact that we have actual proof that voter fraud is indeed taking place, this undermines the freedom, this undermines everything that the men and the women that serve our country stand for, serve for, fight for, put their lives on the line for, and I think at the very least, we here in Illinois can do something to uphold the integrity of this great nation and soon to be great state. So thank you very much.
I want to just echo Representative Daly's. We have proof there's voter fraud going on. State's attorneys, do something about it. Go ahead, Greg.
Looking at these numbers, 9, 1 is pretty low, and we have seen in a couple instances where there's a sheriff's race here in central Illinois that's like 1 vote. So, I mean, do you think these numbers would have impacted any significant races statewide, local? Where do these votes actually end up impacting? I mean, considering, the governor beat the former governor considerably and all up and down the ticket when it comes to statewide races, is it more important on a local level that this is addressed?
Well, don't forget, some of those locations are small, and even within a single precinct, there can be other things going on. I mean, there's smaller races. We're not talking about, governor's race here. 39 votes in Cook County didn't affect the governor's race, right? But also, don't forget that that's times 2. So every single one of these is a double instance. But there are smaller jurisdictions where this makes a difference, but it's still wrong. It still undermines the system. And the fact that we have people that are basically cheating other people of their own votes, and we have state's attorneys that are condoning it, that's a problem. And those state's attorneys are elected. And there has to be accountability for these state's attorneys. Either they do this now, or they're going to have accountability in the ballot box.
Do you know of specific races where this may have, been impactful in any of these counties where you guys were able to find, double voting?
I'm not going to make an assumption on that. And sometimes these cross jurisdictions. So if you vote in, it's typical someone will do a mail-in and then they maybe have a residence someplace else. Or, see, now it's same-day registration. A young person might be registered to vote at their home, at their parents' home, send in a mail-in ballot, and then do same-day voter registration with a current residence or college or things like that. So a lot of times that crosses jurisdictions. It's not always. This is much harder to do within a county. Most county clerks are doing a good job about running this down. And we have that AVR law here in Illinois, which is supposed to crack down on this. Unfortunately, it has not been effective cross-county. And that's a problem. That's a loophole in the law. But that's some of these are multiple jurisdictions. It undermines the system. It's not fair.
Elaborate a bit on that if you can. You mean cross-county?
Well, so the county clerks do a pretty good job. So if you mail in a ballot and then you do a same-day registration, without testing that system, we're not sure how well it works. But according to the new AVR law, that should be flagged and not allowed.
Cross-check, we recently had the State Board of Elections pull out of it. There's another voter verification system in place, right?
There is no state-to-state that I'm aware of that Illinois participates in. And even when Illinois was part of cross-check, Illinois State Board of Elections did not check other states. They just made our data available. And then they did not give all the data. But frankly, this is public information. It's subject to FOIA. I'm just going to post it so we can do it ourselves.
When the State Board of Elections, if they were to go back with the interstate voter registration cross-check program, how long would it take to see that data for them to compile it and make that happen?
So the records exist, so they compile the data themselves, and clearly they do an audit internally. Once that audit is performed, that's when the information. So I don't know if the latest results are fully available from the State Board of Elections yet. I was told months. So I haven't FOIA'd the most, like the 2018 data. But at some point in the near future, I'll do that. But that's also for my own records. I mean, we have to know who the voters are in our district, so we're going to want to know who showed up in November 2018 to vote. So that's something that all of us do, and that's just something that in the future I'll be sharing with the public.
Representative, what is the current status of HB 2632 as it stands right now? So far, I don't believe we've had a hearing yet on this, but they were still pretty darn early in the session.
Have you talked to any Democrats about this, what they think on the other end?
Unfortunately, this seems to be a Republican-driven issue. I haven't seen that many people from the majority party that are really interested in election integrity.
What do you say to people who say voting fraud is not an issue? These are low numbers. It's not going to change the outcome of any race, and this is just being overblown.
it undermines our democracy.
And as far as communication with any state's attorneys that you've kind of pointed out in your spreadsheet here that have double voting cases, have you reached out to any and tried to find out why they haven't gone after?
So this is the beginning, and they are under no obligation to share details of an investigation. But because it's clear that none of these have actually been prosecuted, no charges have been filed, it's apparent to myself and us that they don't plan on prosecuting.
And then outline the enhanced penalties for double voting that you're proposing?
Sure. So what my proposal would be is to make it a Class 1 misdemeanor to double vote within the state, and a Class 4 felony to vote across state lines. And the reason for that is that it is harder to track down. If someone has a residence in Florida and decides to vote both in Illinois and Florida, we don't have cross-check. That's much more difficult. So theoretically, the AVR is supposed to be able to catch people who do that within the state. Obviously, there's a loophole and the system's not working perfect, so we still need to go after people who are doing it within state. But it's harder to prosecute across state lines, so it's appropriate to have a more significant penalty to do it across state lines. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Have a great day, and let's secure our democracy.